welcome to the iSight 2013 preview webinar. Today you're going to learn about new features available in the iSight 8810 laser scanning system and iSight Studio 4.0. Your host today is Clayton Fritz. Clayton is a technical sales engineer for the iSight team in the Denver Maptek office. He offers sales support and client demonstrations to clients throughout North America. Today's webinar will conclude with a question and answer session, so please feel free to write in questions in the panel on the right of your screen. I'll now hand it over to Clayton to show you some of the new options.
I wanted to start off today just giving a quick overview of the 8810 scanner. The 8810 is our newest and upgraded scanner from the 8800. We released it at Mayan Expo. Wanted to touch on a few of the new components of that for those of you who weren't there. This right here is a picture of the 8810, and there's a few new added features that we've actually compiled from the 8400. One of those being it's got push-button scanning. You could do a 360, level 1, or a level 2, and that'll save directly to a thumb drive without having the tablet connected. Also, there is an integrated GPS system inside the scanner itself. So when you look at the file manager in the tablet, those scans are all roughly registered within 1 to 3 meters to give you a really good idea on the amount of coverage that you got and any shadows in the data or areas where you might need to add additional scans. There's also a Bluetooth component to it where it'll actually connect to your survey grade GPS, whether that be a TopCon or a Trimble unit that you have on the scanner itself, and it'll take that survey file or the coordinates from that GPS and embed those inside the scan data. What that does is that basically eliminates the need to register to a scan file later on in the software. So rather than registering by name, those points are already associated with that coordinate system. I don't know if you noticed it in the picture earlier, but there's no cable coming out of the scanner. We've gone to a completely wireless system. The tablet talks directly to the scanner itself via wireless and talks to the GPS via Bluetooth, eliminating the need to carry around all those cables and everything with you in the field. What we've also added is a compass. And unlike the compass inside the 8400, this compass has a really interesting component which allows you to calibrate it while you're actually out in the field. So when you're not setting up on a tripod, if you have it set up on a vehicle mount and you have that consistent magnetic interference from the truck, you can calibrate to compensate for that. And then every time you set up on that truck, it's never going to be an issue in the future. The 8810 has everything else that the 8800 had, including the longer extended range, and we've actually improved the accuracy down from 10 millimeters to it's now an 8 millimeter accuracy scanner. I want to go into Studio now. Now that we saw the 8810, let's go over some of the new capabilities that we've added to Studio 4.0. The main one, or not the main one, but one of the newest components that you'll never actually see in the software itself is we've added a new data engine component where it saves your data engine every 60 seconds, and that's going on in the background while you're working on whatever project you're working on. Down here on the lower right-hand side, every now and then you'll see a little blue taskbar come across there that says saving. And that's just in case the software crashes or there's an interruption in power to your computer, you don't lose the project. Everything you've been working on will be saved up to the last 60 seconds. Another component that we've added is the capability of creating a custom toolbar. And this can be really useful in instances where you've got multiple users and not everybody's doing things the same way. For instance, if you've got several people at a site and they all need to calculate stockpile volumes and you want to ensure that you're doing everything in a uniform format, you can create a toolbar with a name like Stockpiles, and then you can go through and you could pick out the individual filters that you like that give you the best results for your site and your scanning style, and also what particular modeling concept you like, whether it be topographic or spherical. And that way, once you've added that, anybody that goes into that software to work on a stockpile project at your site will be using the exact same tools in the same order to ensure that you've got a uniform product. Another really cool tool that we've added is the ability to import and register a photo to a surface. So what I've got here is this is a triangulation of a scan taken just outside of our office here in Denver, and this is of the building itself. Now we turned the photo off just for just to make sure that you can show you that we're not using the actual photo inside the scanner itself. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to overlay a photo using this new registration that was actually taken from an iPhone. So these photos can be brought in from any sort of any format or any camera that you've got available to you. And one of the benefits of this is the integrated camera in the scanner, it doesn't have a zoom feature. So when you are, say, scanning over, several hundred feet or even several hundred meters, the pixelation aspect of it tends to the picture tends to get pixelated over further distances, and then when you zoom in, it's not the best quality. Let's see here. Let me try to re-import that. My computer's running a little bit slow this morning. So once you go in and you pick the photo that you're going to import, it's going to prompt you to choose a registration style. So there's two different ways to do it. 2 points, which will keep the photo in 2D, but it will place it in your coordinate system if you just need a quick visual reference, or multiple points. And what multiple points allows us to do is it prompts you to choose 8 common points within the triangulation as well as the photo, and then it will actually drape the photo itself over the triangulation. So I'm going to go through here and start picking out a few points. And it's really beneficial to pick points at different depths throughout the photo to ensure that it's going to interpret those depths and contours properly. So you simply click one in the photo, and then you come out here to your triangulation, and you click a point there. And I'm just going to kind of go throughout here and pick, like I said, a minimum of 8. If you're working with a really complex surface with a lot of contours, a lot of ins and outs, or even just a larger area, this is a relatively small triangulation and a small picture, obviously just done on the corner of a building. We're not working with an entire pit or anything of that magnitude. If you were, more points is always a benefit. In a smaller scale project like this, though, 8 will be just fine. As I mentioned, picking points through at multiple depths within the scan is very beneficial, as well as on all edges of it. That helps the software to truly determine where the boundaries of the photo are and where it needs to stretch and contour that so that it actually registers to the triangulation itself. So you can see I'm picking some along the edges here, and I'm going to also try to pick them along the very outside components of the scan. All right, let's get 2 more here real quickly. Grab a few more over here on this left-hand side. All right. And then once you've picked out your points, you simply hit apply or OK. And then, well, it's got a little bit of a spin to it. Clearly I didn't pick points that were along the exact axis, but you can see how it actually takes that photo itself and then overlays it on the triangulation. And this can be beneficial for a number of reasons, as I said earlier, when you're scanning from a distance, but you still need that photo quality to be higher for geotechnical mapping. So let's go into a couple of the other tools that we've added here in Studio 4.0, which is the ability to assign attributes. Now, what that allows you to do is individually pick out point pairs and then almost assign them an attribute, which in essence creates a layer which contains those points. So what I've got here are some scans that were taken to encompass this stockpile here in the center of the screen. And now these already have a few attributes assigned to them, which is under the Edit menu. And so what we've got here is I've actually assigned all the points on the stockpile to this attribute right here. So I can easily turn that off, and then it takes those out of the display. So rather than individually cutting and cropping or cutting and pasting, I can just turn it off, and then I can hit filter show all at any time and bring it all back without having to redo every single filter that we've done. I've also gone through, and in this scan we've got several light poles, so I went ahead and assigned those to an attribute. And this is really beneficial when you need to filter data out, but you know that you're possibly going to have to bring that back in for another component of your project later on. And these can be assigned to any multitude of points, and you can name them anything you'd like. I simply name mine Stockpile and light poles, but you can also, if you were working with surfaces, you could, in the name there of the attribute, you could put in the volume or the tonnage. Something else that we've added in Studio is the ability to create, not create, but query surface intersections. Now we've always been able to query surface boundaries, and this basically applies that same component, but to finding the intersections. So where the query surface boundaries would create a CAD object with that line around the perimeter of the triangulation, this does the same thing, but to multiple triangulations and then where they cross paths with each other. So by querying surface intersections between these two, it's going to prompt me to ask how many I want to keep, and it'll tell you how many that it's found, and then you can limit that down to keep your major 5, 10, 15. In this instance, I'm just going to go ahead and drop it down to 5. So then it puts those inside your CAD objects, and you can see that it's created. So this remainder file, this is going to happen every time you do these. These are the smaller ones that it didn't feel were large enough to actually identify. And then in order, it's going to start 0 is generally going to be your biggest one, and then 1, 2, 3, and thereon. So this instance, these are two triangulations that were taken of the same area, one pre-blast and one post-blast. So in this instance, you can easily identify the areas of swell and regression within the scan itself, and you can see where they overlap. This can also be used for anything from analyzing surface change to determining new ramps or fill areas. And it gives you that nice line that you can export in a DXF or a DWG or a simple text file into another format. Now, something else we've added is a freehand manipulation tool. I'm going to go ahead and use these same surfaces just to illustrate how that works. So in prior versions of Studio, when you would want to move a scan or move an object, you would have to go up and pick translate and pick a point on from and to, and then you'd manually have to go in and choose rotate, select what point you were going to rotate about. They've now added all of those into a freehand manipulation tool. So what the freehand manipulation tool does is it brings up this, this sphere here in the middle, and you can click on any one of these axes, and once you do, by using your center wheel, you can manually move that in and out. This can be used, this is beneficial for visually lining up multiple items, especially before you do a global registration. And that can be done to the rotation factor as well. So you click on whichever one of these axes you choose to rotate around, and then simply using the center wheel on your mouse, click and scroll from left to right, and then it'll go ahead and rotate that data as well. It's a little new to get used to, but the benefits are huge. It saves a lot of time over the old process of translating and rotating manually and then having to guess at the individual angles themselves. One new thing that we've been developing in iSight Studio for a while now is the Geotechnical Toolbar. And we've gotten a lot of really good, useful, really good tools in there, and we just continue to keep progressing with that. And one of the tools that we've been able to use inside that is the ability to create a fitted plane along a facet and then take that facet and then apply it to a stereo net. So I'm simply just going to use the building scan here. Obviously we're not working with a rock face, but the tools use just the same. So what I can do is I can select a couple of points along a facet, and I'm going to go ahead and use our Smart Select to ensure that I've selected everything. And what Smart Select does is it looks at your selection, and it reaches out and selects everything else that falls within the same angular parameters as your initial selection. And what we've added is the ability to extract discontinuities. Now what this does is it actually looks at the triangulation as a whole, and then it will go out and it will find all the other facets within that triangulation that fall within your set parameters. In this instance, we've got an angle threshold of 10 degrees, and that is a default. And then we've also got a minimum area of 5 feet, and you can adjust those. So we could, trim that down to 9 degrees, 8 degrees, whatever's going to fit your application. And you can also change this minimum area to ensure that you're not encompassing smaller pieces that aren't necessarily large enough to really consider when you're factoring these things. And when you create these and you hit OK, it's actually going to go ahead and create a discontinuities folder with each one of those inside your Geotechnical tab. And using these, you can go ahead and create a stereo net by using these discontinuities. Now this saves a lot of time, and it makes it so that you can quickly and easily cell map an area using Lidar data without having to manually go through and find each individual facet. And it also takes out a little bit of the human factor, where you may not be able to see, or you just may not simply notice every facet that's in there. Well, the points are a little bit dark on this screen, and they're pretty much all up here at you can see them, they're at the poles up at the top and the bottom. But you can see how it automatically plots multiple discontinuities for you without having to manually create objects for each individual one of those. And one of the other tools that they've done a lot of work on in this newest release is the coloring by distance from object. This can be used in a multitude of ways. This can be used to visually represent areas within a stockpile that have changed. This can be used in showing movement within a high wall. But the tool itself has gotten quite a bit cooler. It allows you to manually set your own distances, and you can change colors depending on what you'd want to see. In the past, it has automatically populated these for you. And now you can go in, and if you didn't want to look at anything that low, we could just go ahead and change that down to -9. And then you can change the colors themselves. I've grayed out the area around 0 so that you can easily see things that are really, really close to the original surface, and then we know that that hasn't changed a whole lot. So by selecting our post-blast scan and using our pre-blast scan as a base object, I can quickly go ahead and color that using these values. And this also creates a legend for us to make it easier to visualize. So by putting these two side by side, I'm going to go ahead and tile these windows just to make them large enough that everyone can see. You can look at the coloring and then look over at your legend, and it applies values to each individual one of those colors. And anything that is within the bright red is outside of our spec. So you can also color the top and bottom areas, and anything outside of those spectrums you can determine to be one solid color. So we know if it's red, it's outside of our 10 and 9 foot. And like I said, this is incredibly useful. These are often used at many sites to export to a PDF, to use these in presentations and meetings to determine areas that need to be worked on and highlight areas where a lot of change has occurred. These are the main new features that have been added to iSight Studio 4.0. We've got several other ones in the works. We are always looking for input from our clients. We really try to focus on the new tools, developing ones that we know that people are going to use and that are going to be helpful. So we've gotten we've gotten a lot of really good input from several clients, and please keep those coming. We're always looking for new tools to add. That pretty much wraps up what I wanted to show you guys. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Great. Thanks, Clayton. Let's see if we have any questions so far. First one I have here, what formats are acceptable for image registration?
That's a great question. The image registration can accept almost any file. I simply used a JPEG. The images that we were using were actually taken from an iPhone. So anything that, and a JPEG or a PNG are the standard, but any format's acceptable.
I'm having some issues with my screen here. Okay, I saw that Eureka has a dynamic scale on the screen. Does iSight have this?
The viewer itself does not automatically populate with a dynamic scale. That being said, you can add a scale in if you're going to be exporting to a PDF, but we don't actually have a scale in there at any given time that is automatically within the viewer. So that's definitely something we could look at adding in the future, but you can easily query a point or query a distance between points to determine a scale quite easily.
Okay. Here's one. Can the attributes store data?
Yes, they can. So the nice thing about assigning attributes, as I was saying earlier, is you could then take those attributes and export those into a separate scan file or a separate project, and they're still going to contain those points or facets that you've assigned to them.
Okay. Explain why 4.0 needs to convert an existing project file.
So what I think that's referring to is 4.0 now has a Maptek DB as the end piece of the data engine, whereas 3.51 had an MDE. And one of those changes was made. The MDE did not support the continuous dynamic saving in the background, so it's actually a completely different data engine format. So it does unfortunately need to convert the older ones, but 4.0 can always convert and update and open older files, and you can keep a copy of the older file as well if you're concerned about any sort of corruption. But it's mainly due to the fact that we have changed the way the data engine runs and saves, and it's not supported by the older format.
Okay. What would you recommend for setting up a stockpile menu?
My personal preference for stockpiles that I've worked with is I really like the topography filter. This allows you to eliminate points within any set grid and keep the lowest point, the point with the lowest Z value. A lot of the stockpiles I've worked with have been around conveyors, and this has been really helpful with eliminating dust points. So I would start with a quick register by name, filter by topography, and then probably a topographic triangulation.
Okay. Can you set flat shaded surface to be the default?
As far as setting a default surface, I'm not quite sure what that's referring to. With coloring by distance from an object, you could use a flat surface. You could use a planar surface, as well as determining volumetrics. You could compare a stockpile to a flat planar surface. Maybe I can follow up with that listener a little bit later on and determine exactly what they were referring to.
Okay. Those are all the questions we have right now. Maybe we'll wait just a few minutes to make sure no one's typing anything in. Meanwhile, there is more information about iSight on our website at maptek.com. You're certainly welcome to email info@maptek.com as well to speak with us directly and ask any specific questions. Let's see. Oh, wait, I think we do have another question here. Hold on. Can you create a polyline offset by, say, 5 feet?
Yes, absolutely. So you can create polylines and polygons. You can create those and have them projected to a plane so that they're assigned to a specific elevation, and you can create them and then have them projected to a surface as well. And then once those are created, those can, just like any object, can be easily translated. And then by selecting the Z value for your elevation, you could simply type in 5 feet and translate it up or down. And then it would maintain your XY coordinates for that object, being a polygon in this instance, but it would change the elevation values.
Okay. Oh, wait, here comes another question. Sorry. It says not translate, but offset as a CAD.
As far as offsetting it as a CAD, if I must be interpreting that incorrectly, I'm thinking offset. I'm still, in my mind, would be using the translate, which I would then just pick a, between 2 points or along the X or Y axis if you're trying to offset it to a distance. But this might be a really good use of the Freehand Manipulation tool, where you can click on it and then manually drag it the amount of distance that you're wanting, especially if you're trying to line it up visually with maybe a toe or a berm or something like that.
Okay. Here's another question. Is there import for LAS Lidar?
Yes, there is. LAS being the industry standard for aerial LiDAR that's shot from planes, and we do have an LAS importer for Studio 4.0. This has been something a lot of our clients have been asking for, and we now support that, so you can easily import your aerial LiDAR data and tie that in with the terrestrial LiDAR that you've collected.
This is from the same asker. He's asking, can you insert ECW images?
As far as ECW images, I don't have any personal experience with that, but I would say yes. I have yet to run across an image format that it won't allow for import and registration to surfaces. I would be happy to work with that listener a little bit later on and maybe do a go-to-assist and work with them on their specific project, and we can find that out together.
Okay, great. And that's a good point that Clayton's making. For anything that we are not able to address here in the webinar, Clayton is happy to answer questions offline. He is available if you email info@maptek.com. We can certainly get those questions to him. Here's another one. Can you filter only above a surface?
We have not been able to, that has not been added yet, no. As far as filtering above or below, you can filter above or below a set plane, and you can filter by surface proximity, but there is currently not a filter for using a base surface and eliminating the points above or below that yet. This has been asked for by several clients, and it is in the works. We hope to have that added as a new filter tool in the near future.
Okay. I'm not sure if anyone else is perhaps writing in a question. I don't see any so far. I think what we'll do at this point is go ahead and conclude the webinar. If you have any additional questions, as I said before, you're welcome to email those to info@maptek.com. You're also welcome to visit our website at maptek.com for more information on iSight and other Maptek products. So we do thank you for joining us today. On behalf of Clayton and the entire iSight team, we'd like to thank you and hope you attend the next webinar. We'll be putting that schedule out very soon for the next upcoming webinars starting in 2013. Thank you.